Hello and welcome to the Cinephile Cove. I'm Sam, and in today's episode we'll be discussing what 2020 has to offer the world of cinema. But before we jump into what 2020 has to offer, let's take a look at what I've been watching recently. Now, before we go any further, I would like to put across a spoiler warning that is in effect. Any film that I'm talking about at any time will not be spoiler free. Now let's start off with one of my most anticipated films of recent years, Jojo Rabbit. Directed, written and starring Taika Waititi, the film was always destined to be a huge hit. His classic comedic style just pairs perfectly with such a wacky concept of a young boy being best friends with his imaginary figmentation of Hitler. Not the classic narrative that you'd expect from a Hollywood film, but still highly successful. This is due to its comedic stylings and its emotion-driven plot. Throughout the story, we watch as Jojo's mother tries to help the Jews in the time of Nazi Germany, despite her son's desire to become a Nazi. As he spends more time with the young Jew girl that his mother's taken in, he begins to realise that, whilst he's still set in his Nazi beliefs, he starts to question what's right and what's wrong. He starts to fall in love with her, and he learns that love is more powerful than any weapon in any war. The first film I watched in 2020 was Searching. Now, this wasn't the first time I'd seen the film, but when a film is as good as Searching is, you'll watch it over and over again. Searching follows a father trying to find his missing daughter. The film's cinematography is unique. The whole thing is set from inside of digital devices, with the plot unfolding through FaceTime and YouTube videos, and even stuff as simple as just text messages on the screen. This makes this film so unique in its style and storytelling, which is an incredibly easy way to make a film. I believe they shot it in just over a week, but it's so effective. The story is tense and gripping, and you just can't help but watch more and more on the edge of your seat as all of the twists and turns reveal themselves. Having watched it before and rewatching it recently, watching it a second time around allows you to spot all the clues when they were first there. The best way of doing a big reveal in any kind of film like this is to make sure the clues were always available to you. And not only available, but they were shown to you. Because good filmmaking in any kind of whodunit situation is to tell you who did it, but without you ever realising. Also recently, I've rewatched Moana, a Disney princess not like the rest. Moana isn't trying to make a man fall in love with her. She's trying to save her island. But it's still a love story in many ways. Whilst she isn't in love with someone, she's in love with the ocean. And that's a love she doesn't want to lose. It's a love that she's going to fight for. And she does, and she sails away. And not only does she ignite her love with the sea, but she saves the island which she loves. So it's still a love story, it's just a much more heroic one. And I must add, the music in Moana is some of the best that Disney has produced, which serves great thanks to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who worked on the score and lends his vocals to a couple of the songs as well. It's a movie that proves The Rock has more to him than just wrestling and acting, as You're Welcome is one of the runaway hits of the film. Everything about Moana is beautiful. The transformation of Te-Fiti to Te Kā is a beautiful one. And it's something that, as you get towards the climax of the film, you can start piecing it together. But it doesn't make it any less effective in just that one scene where you see Moana walk across the ocean floor to return the heart to Te Kā. And then Te Kā just calms I've watched Inside and lets Moana do it. Now, the last time I watched Inside Out was when it was in cinemas. And when I watched it again, it hit so differently. I remember when I watched it in theatres, Bing Bong's death was upsetting because of how much it represents Riley losing that last bit of her childhood. But rewatching it now, I found for the most part I wasn't enjoying it as much as I did the first time I watched it. But when it gets to the part where Riley's running away from home, I suddenly felt so much more for her this time around. I think the film does a really good job of representing depression, because that's really what Riley's feeling at that point. She's lost absolutely everything. Whilst in the film she's doing it because she's lost joy and sadness, literally. It really represents that when you feel depressed, you've lost all the joy and even the sadness in your life, metaphorically. Because when depression really hits, you don't feel sad. It's something much worse, because you feel empty. You feel like you're missing parts of yourself. And in the film, Riley is. She's missing 2 key emotions. On a whole, Pixar rarely makes bad films, or even mediocre films. And Inside Out is no exception to this. It is a brilliant film. They use colour really well to represent the different emotions and everything and what's going on. Colour is a very important part of the film. Stemming from each emotion having a specific colour as seen across their design. Each character's outfit represents how they're feeling. When they first moved to San Francisco, Riley and her mother are wearing yellow because they're just trying to remain happy, even when they're not. Later on in the film, when Riley's planning to run away from home, she's wearing black because none of her emotions have any control over what she's doing. Pixar really do think about what goes into their films. Every aspect of the design, of the script, of the music pulls together to create a really effective film. Now on to 2020. One of the most common themes across all the films this year is the badass women starring in them. From Black Widow to Wonder Woman 1984, the heroines of our favourite cinematic universes are shining in their own films. Many of the female superhero films coming out this year are carrying on from previous trends from superhero films of having large ensemble casts. This year we're trading the Avengers for the Eternals, Suicide Squad for the Birds of Prey, and the X-Men for the New Mutants. But it isn't just superheroes where we're seeing this rise in female heroes. In Bombshell, we see some real-life heroines, facing up to their own abusers in the face of the Me Too movement. Also this year, we are being treated to the 25th instalment in the James Bond franchise, in which Lashana Lynch plays Nomi, a character who will go on to become the next 007 after Daniel Craig retires at the end of this film. This is the first time the spy has ever been played by a woman, and has faced a lot of controversy online about this. While she is a very good up-and-coming actress, one must ask, is this just the studio trying to tick as many boxes as possible by casting a person of colour who's a woman in this role? Another big trend in cinema set to come this year is based around childhood memories and relying on nostalgia to sell tickets. This is shown with many TV shows becoming films, such as Scooby-Doo in Scoob, which is set to show how the Mystery Gang became. There's also set to be a live-action Clifford the Big Red Dog film, which from the limited set photos that have been released so far, already looks fairly terrifying. I mean, it's not as bad as Cats CGI, but it's not exactly Endgame. With Netflix having recently released The Witcher, there are many more video game-orientated movies set to come out, including Uncharted, which has been facing many production issues, so maybe it might not even come out this year. As well as a new Sonic the Hedgehog film, which wasn't supposed to come out this year. But after facing much controversy with their CGI, it's got bumped up to Valentine's Day this year. So if anyone's looking for that special date on Valentine's Day, go and watch Sonic the Hedgehog. A big honourable mention from this category is Jungle Cruise, a film based on the Disney ride of the same name, starring The Rock, Emily Blunt and Jack Whitehall. Whilst Jack Whitehall isn't a big name in America, he will be starring as Disney's first openly gay character in a film. Which in 2020, it feels like it's very long overdue. The next trend is one that's been big for many years now. It is a trend that sparked many a critic to question whether or not Hollywood is running out of ideas. It is, of course, remakes and sequels. It isn't a year of cinema if there aren't at least a bajillion remakes and sequels. A very notable part of the remakes and sequels coming out this year is the amount of sequels that are for films that... One thing to note is that a lot of the sequels coming out this year are sequels to films that started in the 80s and the 90s, such as Ghostbusters. It's vaguely unclear at the moment how much of a remake this is going to be rather than a sequel. But from the trailers being released, it does look very good. Much better than what we was gifted in 2016. Maverick comes over 30 years since the original Top Gun, and still features Tom Cruise doing what he does best, being the centre of attention and doing his own stunts despite being 57 years old. It's very commendable that he still insists on doing so many of his own stunts. Many young actors in Hollywood nowadays don't. So to see a man that's almost in his 60s doing absolutely insane stunts for his films is highly commendable, and maybe that does earn him the right to be the biggest thing on every poster. In the same bracket, the Kingsman franchise is getting a prequel this year, quite aptly named The King's Man. Set in wartime England, the film has taken a big step away from what the other two films have been. This does not, however, mean that it's going to be drastically different in terms of comedic style or form, as Matthew Vaughn is still at the helm very much, directing and writing the film. With a stellar cast, including Ralph Fiennes, Daniel Brühl, and Stanley Tucci, the film is guaranteed to still be a laugh-a-minute action fest that we've come to know and love from the franchise. To close off this section of the podcast, I'd like to share with you a couple of films I'm quite looking forward to seeing this year. Now, one of my favourite genres of film is the biopic, which is why I am heavily looking forward to The Personal History of David Copperfield. From the trailers I've seen, it looks very funny and incredibly well cast. Another film I'm looking forward to seeing this year is Free Guy, a Ryan Reynolds film where he is stuck inside a video game and suddenly becomes very self-aware of it. He is thrust into a position where he's the only one that's capable of saving the world. Pixar has two films coming out this year, Onward and Soul. Both promise to be just exactly what you'd expect from Pixar. Brilliant animation, brilliant cast, and a lot of emotions. Feel free to leave a comment below telling me what film you're most looking forward to seeing this year and why. I'd like to close it off by saying a big thank you to everyone that's listening to this podcast right now. This has been something I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm just really grateful to be given the chance to. And I'm incredibly grateful to everyone listening to it. Whether you're listening to it the day it was published or years in the future, I'm incredibly grateful that anyone wants to come and listen to me babble. I'd also really appreciate it if you could go and follow my Instagram. The link is in the description below. On there, I've set myself a challenge to watch 400 films this year. And if you wish to join in with the challenge too, use the hashtag 400filmschallenge, and you'll find all of the rules on my Instagram. So once more, thank you so much for clicking on this video and watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from the channel, please subscribe and leave a comment below of anything you want to see from the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.